a sit-down chat with the head of Google DeepMind and the head of Anthropic. It's a video I'll be putting in my newsletter. I highly recommend you watch because these are two very smart guys driving us towards the future of artificial intelligence. It's about half an hour. The talk between Demis Hassabis, the head of Google DeepMind, and Dario Amodei, head of Anthropic, the creators of Claude. So arguably, these two guys have the best models in the world right now. Claude Code is, without doubt, the best coding model. Gemini 3 has basically come from nowhere and become a mainstay in artificial intelligence, whereas 6 months ago, that was not the case. They also have Nano Banana Pro, which is superb. I'm going to be interviewing the head of Nano Banana Pro, or the product developer, next week. I'll give more details of that in the newsletter as well. But Google reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to talk to the guy who runs Nano Banana Pro? And I was like, yep, that would be cool. I'll be collecting questions from the audience. What do you guys want to hear about Nano Banana Pro? I'll be taking them to Google next week. More on that later. The talk is called The Day After AGI. I will put the full link inside of the newsletter so you can watch it. It is well worth having a look at, watching it through. I'm going to run through the main topics and disagreements. They are specifically talking about artificial general intelligence, AGI. For those unclear, we have artificial narrow intelligence, arguably what we have now. AIs are very good at certain tasks. We are working towards AGI, an AI that is equally good at human tasks. Definitions of AGI differ, but that's fair enough as a rule of thumb. And then beyond that, we have something potentially theoretically called ASI, artificial superintelligence, which is when we have an intelligence that is more intelligent than every human on Earth. And at that point, we start to lose touch with the depth of that intelligence. In the same way a chicken might look up at us and cannot comprehend our actions, we might be in a situation where we are looking up at an ASI and thinking, I don't know what they have in store for me. I do not know what they feel about me. I do not know what they think about me. That's theoretical. That's further out. AGI, though, artificial general intelligence, is, at least according to these two men speaking in the World Economic Forum, probably coming quite soon. We're going to talk about their timelines. Let me see if I can find an image of both of them. No, that's Dario and that's Demis. There we go. Make sure you watch this. It's well worth it. It's a good discussion. It's only half an hour. I'll put it in the newsletter. I have some notes. First of all, the general timeline. When do they both think we're going to be hitting artificial general intelligence? Importantly, they both believe it's possible. That's probably the big headline here. We do have to remember these are the heads of labs who are working towards AGI, and they're not going to come out, it's very unlikely they're going to come out and say, there's no way this is going to happen. We're not going to be able to do it with large language models. This is their job, to promote this stuff, especially Dario, because Anthropic needs to raise money. So Dario says aggressive. It's going to be an aggressive timeline, and he predicts models at Nobel laureate levels by 2026, 2027. Probably hasn't escaped your attention that it is now 2026. So we might have, according to Dario Amodei, AGI level intelligence this year or next year. So he generally believes timelines are going to be a lot shorter than most people believe. The reason he believes this is because of the self-improving loop, especially because AI can now code and help to code AI. We have a recursive loop where we can use tools like Claude Code to improve our models. And obviously Dario Amodei runs Claude Code. It's within his company. This could be something that they're seeing internally, or it could be a narrative, a line that helps plump up the importance of Claude Code. Demis Hassabis, who is the head of Google DeepMind, he's a little bit more cautious. However, he still thinks it's coming. So he says a 50-50 chance that we'll have AGI by the end of the decade, and that there are still some capabilities that are missing for scientific creativity in particular. So he's very much focused on science. Demis recently won a Nobel Prize, or shared a Nobel Prize, for his work with AlphaFold. Google DeepMind created AlphaFold to help work out all of the different folding patterns of protein. They managed to do it. It didn't take them very long either, using artificial intelligence. There's a fantastic documentary on that called The Thinking Game, which I highly recommend. Demis is saying, no, it's going to take a bit longer, but he's still saying it's a 50-50 chance by the end of the decade. That's only 4 or 5 years, and the 50% chance is still quite aggressive. In terms of human history, in terms of technological timelines, that is not long at all, even if that is the more conservative approach here. And he proves that self-improving loops are critical. the ability for AI to build AI, for AI to improve AI, but notes it would be slower in domains requiring physical experimentation or lacking easy verification. This is why some labs are looking at world models, a virtual representation of the physical world inside of a computer so that an AI can manipulate physical objects, or in this case, inside a world model. So Demis is saying we're lacking that ability, the ability for AI to interface with the real world through robotics or sensory apparatus. And that is something that some labs are trying to fix through world models, especially Yann LeCun and Fei-Fei Li. Google DeepMind is owned by Google, and they actually produced this documentary. It's all available directly on YouTube. So The Thinking Game, and that's a documentary trailer. The full film is here. Is this it? Which apparently has 317 million views. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's okay. That surprises me. 1/3 billion people have watched the Thinking Game documentary. Okay, cool. I highly recommend it. And there's another one called AlphaGo, also on YouTube, which is precursor to the Thinking Game. You can watch them both independently, but they're made by the same filmmakers and they focus around Demis Hassabis and his team. So if you're looking for something to watch, highly recommend it. I started watching it and my partner saw what I was watching and was like, what is this? And I was like, oh, it's a documentary about artificial intelligence. She was like, oh, sounds boring. And then immediately got pulled in and found the documentary, found the narrative fascinating. But even with a non-technical person, I highly recommend it. It's a well-made movie. Okay, so the next thing they talked about was labor impact. I actually did some slides. No, I'll stay on here. Labor impact. Again, Dario tends to be more aggressive in his forecasts, whereas Demis tends to be a bit more middle of the road, a bit more moderate. Generally, this has been their personalities and how they've estimated the impact of AGI for the last couple of years. Dario says we're going to have an imminent and an overwhelming impact on the labor market. And he predicts half of entry-level white-collar jobs could be gone in 1 to 5 years. It's basically already happening. Entry-level jobs are slowing down because we can do more with artificial intelligence at those levels. Now, obviously, there's going to be structural issues to this. I've talked about this on lives before, where if we don't have people coming in at the bottom of a profession, they don't have any way to learn and to progress up to becoming a senior. So we're going to kick the bottom out of a lot of markets and it's going to destabilize whole industries. That is a more insidious second order effect that I think a lot of people are ignoring. A lot of companies are certainly ignoring because that's for later and we tend not to think in longer term visions. Demis Hassabis is a bit more optimistic. He thinks there's going to be a near term disruption. It's going to be messy. He didn't say how long that disruption is going to be, only that it's going to be messy for probably a few years. But then after that, we're going to see the creation of more jobs. So he expects normal tech disruption in the next 5 years with new jobs created. And then post AGI, whenever that happens, is uncharted territory. There'll probably be some job creation or something that is created. And they went on to talk about what life looks like afterwards. High art, philosophy, exploring the stars, very sci-fi. They agree jobs, at least for the next 5 years, probably more, are going to be incredibly disrupted. And this is in part why I created AI with Kyle, to get people to think about artificial intelligence and how it's going to impact their jobs, because it is going to impact their jobs. And my personal belief, maybe right, maybe wrong, is that we need to have other streams of income. We need other things in our life, apart from our job, that allow us to weather whatever is going to be coming for us, because we do not know how chaotic it's going to be. So we need to diversify. We need to not rely on one pillar of income, which is a 9-to-5 job, but instead start setting up side hustles, freelancing, maybe build an app, start doing workshops, something so that we have different sources of income for when our jobs are either taken from us or massively disrupted by artificial intelligence. And that's why I keep banging the drum about it. For this reason, I did create the AI readiness. It's in here. There's an AI readiness kind of challenge on my website. It's free and you can join my newsletter and trying to help 1 million people get ready for what it is that's coming. Again, that's free. That's AI with Kyle. Geopolitical strategy. Now, Dario Amodei said we need to stop selling chips to China. I've covered drama with GPUs and NVIDIA and how they've been sold to China in the past. But very briefly, NVIDIA H200s are the kind of workhorse chip. They have been banned from being sold to China for years. So Nvidia were not allowed to sell to mainland China because it would allow mainland China to catch up and maybe surpass American AI capabilities. Various US governments, not just Trump, but prior to that, said, no, you shouldn't be selling this to China. That has weakened and been abolished in the last few months, with Trump saying, okay, you may sell to China as long as you pay me directly. And initially it was you had to pay the US government 15% of chip revenue from the sales, and then he increased that to 25% and said, now you're allowed to do it. But he keeps prevaricating, going back and forward. China, for what it's worth, have not been that interested in buying the chips. China is trying to build their own ability through companies like Huawei. They are currently behind, and that's why we've seen delays in things like the new DeepSeek model, because their chips are not quite there yet. We have speculation they've managed to reverse engineer extreme ultraviolet lithography, a specific technology owned by one company, a Dutch company called ASML, which has allowed for chips, the Nvidia chips, to be constructed. It sounds like China has reverse engineered that, so this might help them. There's a book called Chip Wars, published in 2022. One of the big things in Chip Wars, though, was that, America's probably going to be okay because the extreme ultraviolet lithography has not been accessible, has not been discovered by the Chinese yet. That may have changed. So Chip Wars is a little bit out of date if that has changed, but it's still a fascinating geopolitical study. Dario is saying we need to stop sales to China immediately, and selling GPUs, selling chips for AI training to China is akin to selling them nuclear weapons. We must not do it. Demis, on the other hand, says we need international cooperation. If the US and China aren't talking, then they're going to be in this race, this arms race. They're going to continuously try to outdo each other, and one of the only ways to do that is by letting safety standards slip. It's more profitable if China and the US collaborate and work out how to develop AI safely, because it's cross-border and it affects all of humanity. It shouldn't just be these two countries butting heads on this technology. So he's a bit more idealistic. Both believe that China is the other player in this, and they need to be either fought against by not allowing them access to chips or by working with them. I think that fighting them will maybe work in the short term, and it will maybe allow America to get, or an American lab to get to AGI faster than a Chinese lab. However, it will be worked out, and domestic chip production will be sorted eventually in China. It may take a couple of years. And at that point, their manufacturing capacity and their electricity capacity is so much more than the West, I can say broadly than the West, the US and all the other countries, that they'll be able to take over again. Betting against China is... Trump talked about this at Davos as well, about China. It's hard not to. Existential risk. So both Dario Amodei and Demis Hassabis talked about whether or not AI is going to wipe us all out. Both of them were positive about artificial intelligence and AGI. I mean, they have to be. They run these labs for their own mental health and being able to sleep at night. I'm sure they need to have a relatively cheery outlook. They can't get on stage at the World Economic Forum and say, oh my God, it's going to kill us all, even if they did believe that, which I don't think they do. Dario Amodei thinks we're in a technological adolescence. We are in a time where we have growing pains and we need to work out what we're doing with technology moving forward. He rejects doomerism, but he says we need to be ready because this is important. We need a battle plan to overcome risks like misuse and loss of control to the AGI specifically. He's trying to walk a fine line between it's going to kill us all and don't worry about it at all. He's saying it's important and we need to be ready, but he is rejecting pure doomerism. I think a fairly sensible approach to it, honestly, because burying your head in the sand and saying it's all going to be fine is just as stupid as, oh, it's going to terminate us immediately. And then Demis Hassabis says we will be fine in terms of existential risk as long as we take our time to develop it and don't race forward. He pushed back on Dario here, saying that with longer timelines to AGI, we are able to collaborate more with the Chinese, with other labs. We're able to work this stuff out and be a bit more careful in how we deploy these things. If, however, the huge amount of competition exists between the labs and between the US and China, there's not going to be a space to step back and think, are we doing the right thing? How are we going to control this? The commercial and geopolitical pressure means ethical quandaries get pushed to the door. Demis is saying, he didn't say slow down, but speed increases risk. I'm actually going to talk about the slowdown message because a few people have read or watched this discussion and they've read it as, okay, these guys are saying we need to slow down. That's not how I saw it. Remember, these are CEOs, heads of labs, media trained. They're very political in what they say, and it is easy to hear what we want to hear from these guys. But overall, you can watch the whole video on YouTube. It's called The Day After AGI. It is well worth watching because these are, again, two people who are shaping the future of artificial intelligence. They know what their labs have, they know what they're working on, so they probably have a pretty good idea of what we're moving towards in the next couple of years. And both agree that we'll probably, 50-50 chance in Demis Hassabis' case, we'll probably get to AGI by the end of the decade, which is not long in historical standards. That is not a long time at all. You can see if there's questions, and I'm going to hop over. There's a couple of groups. I follow them, particularly agree with them, but I follow them. It's interesting to see other people's points of view. There are organizations like Pause AI. There are AI Safety Memes, which actually has 100,000 followers, a lot more than Pause AI. This community, like Stop AI, Pause AI, etc., have seen this discussion and the Davos World Economic Forum as a whole as quite positive in terms of AI slowdown. AI Safety Memes has said, huge news. CEOs of 3 of the 4 leading AI companies all said they would pause/slow down if others agreed. So Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei, if we don't sell chips to China, it slows them down. And then I'm very confident that Demis and I, head of Google, DeepMind, can work something out. Yeah, I'm not sure if that is necessarily talking about a slowdown. And this is again based on China slowing down. So this is almost like the prisoner's dilemma here, where if you as a lab slow down, the other competitors take over and you lose. That's fine. If all US labs, XAI, OpenAI, Anthropic and Google decide to slow down, that's fine, but China won't necessarily slow down. It requires both US and Chinese labs getting together and deciding to slow down. Even then, you have the risk now that we've released open source models and somebody potentially could accelerate away from America and China. It's difficult to do because of the amount of computing power, but not impossible. This is Dario and Demis Hassabis potentially saying we could work something out. AI Safety Memes is reading something into this that they are looking for, and it is not exactly a full-throated approval of slowing down, but it is what it is. And they talk about this when they were talking about the timelines. Demis said, if we can, maybe it would be good to have a slightly slower pace than we are currently predicting, even my timeline, so we can get this right societally. But that would require coordination. That is hard. Dario says, I prefer longer timelines. Demis, yes, Dario, I'll concede. I've said before, I prefer Demis's timelines. I wish we had 5 to 10 years. It's possible he's just right and I'm wrong, but assume I'm right and it can be done in 2 years. Why can't we slow down to Demis's timelines? The interviewer says, you could just slow down. Dario says, we can't because we have geopolitical adversaries building the same technology at a similar pace. China. One geopolitical adversary is China. It's very hard to have an enforceable agreement where they slow down and we slow down. So if we can just not sell chips to China, this is a question of competition between the US and China. This is a question of competition between me and Demis, which I'm confident we can work out. So they can say what they want about slowing down amongst themselves. They can say, oh, OpenAI, oh, Grok, let's all slow down. It doesn't matter if China doesn't slow down. The slow down AI people have turned to Sam, saying, Sam Altman, it's your turn. Creating common knowledge of a desire to coordinate is step 1. Step 2 is figuring out how to actually coordinate. So they're trying to pressure Sam Altman into saying that he would also slow down. None of this matters if China doesn't. CEOs can say whatever they want, knowing they don't have to do anything. In fact, the US government will probably tell them they're not allowed to slow down. So they can say what the hell they want. And remember, these are CEOs trained with media training to be a public-facing figure for representing artificial intelligence. So it has been read in. Morning, Lyra. I did want to mention Trump. I don't talk about him that much, but he actually got something right at the World Economic Forum recently. He said the race now is about energy, not about the best AI model, but who has the most electricity. And yeah, he's right. The bottleneck is primarily GPUs, how many graphical processing units you have, and then how much data you can throw at it. That increasingly is going to become an energy bottleneck. So how much electricity you have to run your data centers. China now produces more electricity than I think pretty much the rest of the world put together. China is at 10 terawatt hours. I think it's more than that now. I think it's 12 terawatt hours. So this is a bit out of date. whereas the US is, I think it's about 5 now. So China is more than doubled that. And you add all of the other nations together, and I think China is about the same energy production as every single other nation on Earth. That is really useful if you need to power your data centers. China has been sustainably investing in energy production. Initially, it was things like coal production. Yep, they still use a huge amount of coal, but now increasingly it is sustainables. So they recently built a solar panel installation the size of Bristol, a city in the UK. They are not messing around when it comes to deploying new energy. And if this is the bottleneck, and Trump seems to think so, and I agree with him on this case, then China is well ahead. America is starting to invest in more energy. Energy and the amount of electricity you can generate is going to become a strategic concern with artificial intelligence. The person who has the most energy production is in a very strong position. Right now, that is China. China is racing ahead with energy production. They are spending a huge amount of money on their infrastructure that is just not being spent anywhere else on Earth. If you look at the UK, it takes 20 years to build a new power station, and that gives us 0.01 terawatt hour, whereas in China, they are just deploying knowing that they're going to need more electricity for the future. Yeah, the UK has no chance. No, we're out of the race. Demis Hassabis, who we just talked about, is British, but his company DeepMind were purchased by Google back in 2014, which I think was a great thing for them because it gave them basically unlimited resources to do what they wanted. Whereas if they were still in the UK, interestingly, he's kept the headquarters here. It's in London. That was one of the parts of the negotiation. It's cool, you can buy us, we're staying here. Watch the Thinking Game documentary. You can see that negotiation and why he wanted to stay in the UK. But it is an American company. At the end of the day, it's American money. It just happens to have a British team run by a British guy. Very smart British guy. Couple of other bits and pieces. So we have Claude's Constitution. Came out today or yesterday. I'm not that interested, honestly. So they already had a constitution. They've reworked their constitution. So Anthropic have a constitution for Claude. It just feels a bit theatrical to me, all of this. Anthropic are very good at the safety stuff. They're good at systems cards. Talking about ethics, research papers. They have a chief philosopher, which I don't believe the other companies do, thinking about the impact of artificial intelligence. So part of this is releasing a new constitution. I will put it in the newsletter. You can read through it all. To me, it just feels like a PR stunt, especially when we have Dario Amodei, who's the head of Anthropic, head of Claude, saying this is going to be a mess, take everyone's jobs, we need to move faster and beat China. So you have the head of the company saying we need to go and yeah, it's going to be a bit messy, sorry. But then you have his PR team who are diligently putting out things like this constitution, which is we want it to be broadly safe, ethical, compliant with guidelines and helpful with operators and users. It all sounds great, but the reality is the head of the company is going full steam ahead to build AGI as quickly as possible. And if this constitution or any of the other ethics papers or the head philosopher get in the way of that, I don't think they're going to have a say at all. He's just going to steamroll through them. So I will put it in the newsletter. You can read through it, but it's, to me, feels purely like a PR exercise, which is why I'm not interested. Oh, Lyra says the companion community are mad about this. Which one? The Constitution? Tell me more. I'm interested in why. I just see it as a bit, it looks good, but it's not going to do anything. That seems to be the reaction of a lot of people. The other big piece, so Google, there we go. Google, these are just some product releases, but Google, like they always are, they're just cooking away in the background, releasing more and more cool stuff. So much stuff, you don't necessarily know everything they've created. Things like Notebook LM, one of the best AI tools out there. A lot of people are like, what the hell is Notebook LM? They are continuing just to put out really good tools. So they've got a new one, which put out full-length, on-demand practice exams for SATs. Inside the Gemini app, you can now do standardized tests, practice, get better at them, get feedback, etc. at no cost inside of Gemini. So it's starting with the SAT, practice SATs. Sorry, in America you call them SATs, I think, and we call them SATs over here. But I'll stick to SATs. Practice SATs are grounded in rigorously vetted content in partnership with the Princeton Review. Interestingly, they probably know what side their bread is buttered and they realize that they're in trouble. So at least get into bed with Google and make some money in the meantime. And Gemini will provide immediate feedback highlighting where you excelled and where you might need to study more. Really cool. There's a book by Salman Khan called Brave New Words. He was brought in to the OpenAI team back before the release of GPT-4 to help work out how they could integrate it into the Khan Academy, which Salman Khan works. And the whole book is about how AI can be extremely beneficial to education if it is applied properly. It gives us the ability to put a tutor, a one-to-one tutor, into the hands of every single kid on Earth, which is a luxury that most people cannot afford. And that is happening. That really is happening. Now, it is up to the parent, it is up to the school, it is up to the child to use these tools, because they could also use AI to do non-studious activities, but the option is available there. And Google are pushing out more and more ways to interact and to learn using artificial intelligence. And it's free, which is fantastic. Now, this announcement here has probably killed 100 startups who provide test prep practice. Sorry to those guys, but I still think this is fantastic in terms of the world's students now having access to this. So that's one of the things they released. The second one is partnering with Khan Academy, Salman Khan, who wrote Brave New Words about the use of AI in education, and he runs the Khan Academy, obviously, to bring a suite of Gemini-powered learning tools to students, starting with the Writing Coach tool. Writing Coach walks students through outlining, drafting, and refining their ideas. This could be custom GPT or a custom agent. It's still very cool that they've built this and made this available. So instead of it just writing the essay for you, if you say, I need to write an essay about King Henry VIII's 6 wives, it won't just go and do it for you, but instead it will say, okay, what kind of angle do you want to take on this? And then it will help you by asking questions, get stuff out onto the page, and then it will coach you for how to actually write. Interestingly, this is specifically an example that Salman Khan talks about in his book. But, and I think this is quite telling, initially Salman Khan of the Khan Academy, he worked with OpenAI, he worked with ChatGPT. He's now working with Google. I'd love to know what happened, because that is a big shift. That is a really big shift. ChatGPT also has a learn mode, which is very cool. It sets custom instructions so that the AI won't just give you the answers, but it instead will try to elucidate the answers from you and work with you. This seems like a similar version with a bit more tooling so that you can go through these stages of understanding, outlining, drafting, and revising. So it takes you specifically through the process of preparing an essay. Very cool, and I think a good remedy to what a lot of schools are seeing, which is kids can just go onto ChatGPT and say, hey, write me an essay about the wives of Henry VIII. Very tempting, very easy to cheat. This is a way that we can hopefully bring kids back to actually learning. But of course, it's going to be up to the kid. It's going to be up to the teachers. It's going to be up to the parents to use AI in this way. So I thought these were great, that they are just putting out tools that benefit humanity, not just talking, but saying, here you go, done, free. I think that's the way. I wish they got more visibility. Google's problem is they release so much that it's hard to keep up, and people don't hear about these products at all. The companion community are mad about Claude's constitution. They think it would nuke his personality. They haven't updated the model to go with the constitution, to my knowledge, but it might be fed into the next model. However, I thought that Claude wasn't popular in the companion community. Or am I wrong? I thought it was still 4.0. I was talking to Solon, who runs Launch Lemonade. Launch Lemonade allows you to build agents, workflows, applications, and chatbots. A lot of users use it for roleplay, companionship, etc., etc. For that reason, she found actually a lot of people are still using 4.0. They have not moved off 4.0 inside of Launch Lemonade, despite 5, 5.2, etc. being available. I imagine that is because 4.0 is still a better companion model than the more recent ones. One last piece, because it was interesting. Claude Code. You've heard me going on and on about Claude Code, and I'm currently running 2 Claude Code agents in the background while talking to you on the live stream. Whenever I'm not running Claude Code, I feel like I'm losing time. It is beginning to break into the mainstream. So there was an article in the Wall Street Journal recently about Claude Code. Claude has taken the AI world by storm, and even non-nerds are blown away. Thanks, Wall Street Journal, calling me out. Developers and hobbyists are comparing the viral moment for Anthropic's Claude Code to the launch of generative AI. I was giving part of my AI workshop. I had a live call with about 25 students and was really happy to find out that a whole bunch of them are now using Claude Code. And as soon as people use Claude Code for the first time, they're like, oh my God, this changes my life. So I highly recommend, if you haven't used Claude Code, so I've written some guides on it, and get started. So the Wall Street Journal says they call it getting Claude-Pilled. It's the moment software engineers, executives, and investors turn their work over to Claude AI and witness a thinking machine of shocking capability, even in an age awash with powerful artificial intelligence tools. Yeah, for me, it's the closest feeling I've had to first using ChatGPT. When the first public release of ChatGPT came out and I used it, I was like, oh, wow, this is going to be important. That was a changing point. For me, I've only had that feeling a few times. Nano Banana Pro was one of them from Gemini. The way they could nail images and add text into images, for me, it was like, wow, that's a big shift. Claude Code. So there's been the big three for me, has been the release of ChatGPT, Nano Banana Pro, Claude Code, have been big watershed moments in the development of AI, as far as I'm concerned. And it's great that Claude Code is getting into the mainstream and people are hearing about it. At Davos, at the World Economic Forum, Jensen Huang, the CEO and founder of NVIDIA, he bigged up Claude Code. He said, Claude is incredible. Anthropic made a huge leap in coding and reasoning. NVIDIA uses it all over. Every software company needs to use it. Even when you have, so they're not competitors, but you have the CEO of another massive AI-related company saying, yeah, these guys are the real deal. It's fantastic to see Claude Code getting this praise because it really is phenomenal. I did create a guide. Let me check. I might not have made it available though. I don't see it. No, this is not it. I'll find it and put it on the website. It'll be in resources. But using Claude Code initially is quite intimidating, the ways to get into it. They recently released Claude Cowork, which allows you to get it working, but you need a Pro or Max plan. You use the Claude desktop app on macOS. Claude Cowork is a stripped down version of Claude Code, but you need to have a paid or a Max plan. They've also added it into Claude itself. So if you click on the left hand side, there is a Claude Code tab. Oh, that has brought it up in my desktop, but if you click here, you'll be able to get into it there. Those are two ways to get into it. Or you can download VS Code for free, and then you can add the Claude Code extension. Can you? No, Antigravity is just using Claude. Or the way I do it is through Cursor. So I don't use VS Code, but VS Code is free. But I use Cursor, which is this one. And then again, I've installed Claude Code inside. Or finally, if you are more savvy, you probably don't need me to tell you this, but you use your terminal and you're going to use this. But obviously, if you're comfortable looking at this and using the terminal, then you don't need me to tell you how to install Claude Code. But for everyone else, there are different options. Claude Code Cowork, Claude Code Web, Claude Code inside of VS Code or Cursor. Lots of options that don't require terminal or the command line interface. So I recommend literally go and talk to ChatGPT or Claude and say, hey, I've heard about this Claude Code thing and I think I should try it out. How do I do it? I don't know what I'm doing. Just tell your AI and it will help you through the process. Hopefully they'll make it easier to access. It shouldn't require many steps or different possibilities for you getting into it. Claude helped me install on the terminal. Lyra in chat asked AI how to install Claude Code and got it working on the terminal. Whenever you run into a technical issue with coding or anything, talk to the AI, being able to work through technical problems by basically copying over what you're seeing. If you see an error code, copy it over to the AI. You can also screenshot the error, send it to the AI. You can look in the inspector inside of Chrome, send it to the AI, and it will help you to diagnose what's wrong. That is the future of technical diagnosis. I've forgotten his name. He had a problem with Notion the other day. He says, I'm going to lose my faffing shiz Notion. Basically, he was trying to run Notion in desktop and it was blank. And he was asking on the internet, is it down? What's going on? This is just me. He took the error code. Let me find it. He took the error code and chucked it into Claude Code. Claude Code helped him fix it. There we go, Notion down. Claude Code fixed this in one shot, by the way. So Claude Code helped him fix another piece of software on his computer. So he took all of these error codes from Notion, chucked them into Claude Code and said, how do I fix it? My Notion desktop app is not working. Something is wrong with the auth. Can you wipe the local auth? Done. You can use Claude Code for anything. It's incredibly powerful and only as limited as your imagination. Definitely get on it if you haven't already. Which better option, Claude with Code and Coworks or Gitpilot Copilot Pro? Claude Code. GitHub Copilot is not so great. If you want code completion, it's fine. But Claude Code is a proper AI coding agent. It's going to be able to do a lot more. Awesome. If you need the notes, I'll link in the video, the full video of the World Economic Forum that we talked about, as well as all the other resources. Come over to my website, click join the community, and that will also sign you up to the newsletter where you'll get the summary of everything that's been discussed. I am traveling up to Norfolk. Have a fantastic weekend. See you next week.